The most dangerous person in any room is not the loudest one. It is the one you barely noticed, the one sitting quietly in the corner, executing while everyone else is talking. And by the time people realize what just happened, that silent person has already won. Welcome to Inspire with Stories. If you have ever felt like staying quiet meant falling behind, this video is going to change the way you think forever. And if this is your first time here, I want you to hit that subscribe button right now. Because every week, we bring you stories and insights that push you to think deeper and live smarter. Let me tell you about a man named Marcus. Marcus worked at a mid-sized tech company in Austin, Texas. He was not the guy who cracked jokes in meetings. He was not the one sending the long emails about his weekend plans or broadcasting every little win on LinkedIn. He came in, sat down, opened his laptop, and worked every single day. While 3 of his colleagues were constantly networking, name-dropping, and making sure every senior leader knew what they were doing, Marcus just built things. He solved problems nobody asked him to solve. He improved systems that nobody told him to fix. He stayed late, not to be seen, but because he genuinely cared about the outcome. 2 years later, when a director position opened up, the CEO did not choose the loudest voice in the room. He chose Marcus. Not because Marcus had campaigned for the role, but because his work had been silently making the company better for months. Nobody could ignore what he had built, and when his name came up in that boardroom, every single leader nodded, because results speak louder than words ever could. This is the core truth that most people in America miss today. We live in a culture that rewards noise. Social media glorifies the brag. Office culture sometimes mistakes talking for doing. But the people who actually shape the world, the ones who build real wealth, real respect, and real legacies, they operate on a different frequency. They move in silence, and they move fast. Now, I want to be clear about something important. Moving in silence does not mean you are shy. It does not mean you hide in the shadows or refuse to speak up. It means you understand the difference between performing and producing. It means you have the self-discipline to let your results announce you, instead of your mouth doing it early and your actions never catching up. That distinction right there is the line between people who always seem to be working on something big and people who actually finish something big. Think about the people you most respect in your life, not the ones who talked about what they were going to do, the ones who simply did it and then showed you after. There is a quiet confidence in that, a power that does not need validation every 5 minutes. It says, I know what I am building. I do not need your applause. While it is under construction, I will show you the finished product when it is ready. That kind of energy is magnetic. It draws opportunity in, rather than chasing it desperately. Let me share another story. A young woman named Diana moved to Chicago at 24 with barely enough money to last 3 months. She had a business idea. Everyone around her told her to talk about it, to post about it, to build a following before she even had a product. And she watched many of her peers do exactly that. They built audiences around promises. They hyped launches. That never happened. They got lots of attention and very little traction. Diana did something different. She went quiet. She spent 6 months building her product in silence, testing it with real customers, fixing the problems, and perfecting the experience. When she finally launched, she had a waiting list of over 300 paying customers. She had 0 hype posts, 0 countdown timers, 0 big announcement energy. She just opened the door, and the people who had watched her work silently, consistently, without fanfare, they walked right in. Within 18 months, Diana's company was generating over $1 million in annual revenue. And only then did she start talking about the journey, because by then, the proof was undeniable. What Diana understood, and what most people never learn, is that silence protects your process. When you announce your goals too early, something psychological happens. Your brain gets a small hit of dopamine just from the announcement itself. You feel the reward before you have done the work, and that feeling can actually reduce your motivation to follow through. Researchers have studied this. Telling people about your plans can give you a false sense of progress. You feel like you have already moved forward, so your drive to actually move forward weakens. But when you keep your goals close, you stay hungry. You stay focused. You wake up every morning with something unfinished burning inside you, and that is fuel. That is what drives people to do extraordinary things. There is also a protection element here that people overlook. When you move in silence, you protect yourself from critics who want to derail you before you even get started. Every time you share a dream with the wrong person, you open the door to doubt. And some people, whether they mean to or not, will plant seeds of discouragement that grow into the weeds that choke your progress. I am not saying surround yourself with secrecy and distrust. I am saying be intentional about who gets access to your unfinished work. Share your vision with the people who will sharpen it, not the ones who will question it out of their own fear. Here is something else that does not get talked about enough. Moving in silence is not just a strategy. It is a character builder. It demands patience. It demands trust in your own process. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school varsity team, and instead of complaining publicly, he went home and worked harder in private. He came back the next year, transformed. He did not wait for people to believe in him. He built a version of himself that was impossible to ignore. Oprah Winfrey was told by a TV producer early in her career that she was unfit for television. She did not go on a talk show to defend herself. She went quiet, say, work, and she built something so undeniable that the entire industry eventually had to acknowledge her. These are not coincidences. These are patterns. The pattern of silent execution. Now, I want to address something directly, because I know some of you are thinking it. You might be wondering, but what about networking? What about making sure people know what you are capable of? And that is a fair question. The answer is this. Your work creates the best networking story there is. When your results are real and visible, people do not just know your name. They respect your name. They recommend your name without you even having to ask. The goal is not to be invisible forever. The goal is to build something real first, so that when you do step forward, you step forward with substance. There is a difference between being seen for what you have done and being seen for what you have said you will do. One builds trust. The other eventually destroys it. There is a phrase that has been circulating for years in self-development circles. Stay low, grow slow, and then blow. And while it sounds simple, the people who actually live it understand how hard it is. Because we are surrounded every single day by the pressure to perform publicly, to post the progress, to broadcast the process. And fighting that urge takes real discipline. But here is the reward. When you do eventually surface, when the work is done and the results are clear, you do not just get attention, you get respect. And respect, real deep respect, lasts longer than any viral moment. Let me tell you one last story to bring this home. There was a writer in New York City named James. For 4 years, James worked on a novel. Nobody knew about it. His coworkers did not know. Most of his friends did not know. His family thought he was just spending a lot of time alone. He wrote before sunrise. He wrote on weekends. He revised and threw away and rewrote. He had no followers, no writing newsletter, no progress updates. Hust wrote. When he finally finished the manuscript and sent it to agents, he got 14 rejections. But on the 15th submission, he got a phone call. His book was published. It hit a bestseller list in its first month. And when people asked him how he had stayed motivated through 4 years of invisible work, he said something that stopped me cold. He said, I was not working to be seen. I was working to be finished. And there is all the difference in the world between those two things. So I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to hear from you in the comments below. Think about the biggest goal you are working toward right now. Are you someone who shares it loudly and often? Or are you someone who keeps it close and just keeps building? Drop your answer down below. Tell me where you are on that spectrum. And tell me if this video shifted anything for you. I read every comment, and I promise this conversation is worth having.